Hi, everybody. This is Joe from Ecommerce Platforms, and today we're going to be talking about the top 10 PayPal alternatives for your online store. If you're starting an online store or if you've had one for a while, you know what PayPal is probably. PayPal was once one of the most revolutionary pieces of technology in the world. But as time has passed, there have been more and more competitors coming out. We have a whole list of them here, and you'll learn why sometimes PayPal is the best when you're making an online store. But sometimes you might be in a certain region where PayPal doesn't support, or maybe the PayPal fees are just too high for your particular online store. So if we go over here, focus in, we have 10 different PayPal alternatives. I like them all for a wide variety of reasons. So we have Transferwise, 2Checkout, Skrill, Stripe. You may have heard of some of these before. Dwoll, Amazon Pay. So all of them, like I said, are good for a wide variety of reasons, but it really depends on the type of store you have and where your store is located, your business is located. So I will touch on all the key points, exactly why you might want to consider one of these PayPal alternatives, and whether or not you should just stick with PayPal itself. All right, so let's start with my first and favorite PayPal alternative. It's called Transferwise. And we can take a look at it here. This is just the article that we wrote about PayPal alternatives as well. And we will go and visit this website. So this is the Transferwise website. And as you can see, it's pretty clean. It does have some unique features. Transferwise is a much cheaper alternative to PayPal for many international transfers. So you can actually check out, they have a comparison tool on here. And even right from their homepage, you can see, if you wanted to spend $1,000 in USD, you would be able to see how much your recipient would get in various different currencies. So that's pretty valuable. And then, of course, you can receive money. So if you wanted to get a borderless account or international banking details, it's all available for you. Now, the Transferwise system works pretty interestingly because it's completely unique from how PayPal and some of the other competitors work. So how it works is it cuts out sneaky hidden charges and sticks to just one upfront transfer fee. So that's all you're doing. You're paying one transfer fee, and it's also interesting how the money gets moved around. For instance, let's say you're in the US and you wanted to send some money to a friend in France, let's say. You make the payment and the money goes into Transferwise's American bank account. So then Transferwise pays your friend from the Transferwise France bank account using whatever real exchange rate is happening at that time. Therefore, the money never actually crosses borders. So you can send, from the US over here and all the way to Europe without actually sending that money. So it's just Transferwise using multiple bank accounts to make it easier and cheaper for you, which I think is pretty interesting and allows for better international sending. Now, if we go up to the business account up here, there's all sorts of different features. You can also get a debit card, which is really nice. But you can get international bank details. You can run payroll and batch payments and get paid as a freelancer, for example. But I want to walk through the pros and cons of all of these. So the pros for Transferwise, in my opinion, would be one, it's one of the most accepted and cheapest tools for making international money transfers. They have 400 million customers globally. Their pricing is really transparent. If we jump back here, I can show you that pricing, and I kind of explained it to you. There's pricing for sending money, receiving money, debit cards, business. So let's go to the business pricing. And it's all factored into that one transfer fee. So it's just the one fee every single time. And that's what makes it so simple. Now, you might be a little confused at first because you don't know exactly what that fee will be. But they have these nice tools like we kind of walked through before. So, if I wanted to send, let's say $5,000 USD, recipient gets about 4,300 in euros. And, you can change this around. If you're receiving money in, say, let's say USD, or let's say the British pound, you can change it up as much as you want. Japanese yen, it all gets changed perfectly for you. So you can kind of take a look at that. And then when you scroll down here, you see the exact receipt and how much the fee will be. So this fee would be 137 Japanese yen, which is where you're sending the money from. What's also interesting is Transferwise has a borderless account. If we go to this web page, this basically allows you to hold and transfer money between over 40 different currencies. So if you're doing a lot of different international business transactions, this is a great way to make sure that you can keep track of all that and get it all into one account. And then they also have the Transferwise for Business, which is what we saw. So you can invoice your customers in that currency that works for them. So, if you're a freelancer per se, or if you're running an online store and you have clients in India and China and wherever throughout the world, you can accept their currencies and then it just gets transferred immediately to yours. And then, of course, the money never actually crosses borders, so you get to keep your costs low and it ensures faster transfers. In terms of the cons, let's see here. You can't send or receive money if it's not a bank transfer. So that makes it a little bit more complicated. You need to hook up your bank. That's just the way it is. The good thing is that it usually is a really fast transfer, but you will have to link up to your bank. And you can also only receive money in euros, US dollars, Australian dollars, and the Great British pound with the borderless account. So that would be, we were at the borderless account before. But yeah, so basically, if you're accepting in any other currency besides those four, it's not possible. And finally, you don't get all the nifty extra features like recurring billing yet. So it's not quite at that level of PayPal. But otherwise, in terms of international business, Transferwise is by far the best. Okay, so the next one on my list is called 2Checkout. Now, you might be familiar with this one. It's one of the more popular options for online stores. It's one of our favorite PayPal alternatives, mainly because it's all about accepting payments globally. So it's similar to the previous one we talked about, where it's great for international business. And as we said a bit about PayPal in the introduction, you're still somewhat limited to the countries you can accept payments from through PayPal. So 2Checkout looks to change that, which is pretty great because the fees in the US are exactly the same as PayPal with 2Checkout. But we've found that other countries have better rates when accepting payments from from customers in general. You could also go to this rates page up here. I'm going to focus in on that. And basically, what that does is it allows you to see if your country will get a better rate than PayPal. So, for the United States, it's exactly the same. It won't really change anything in terms of the pricing. But, if you wanted to go to, let's say, the Ukraine, you could see what the transaction costs are. And I'm not sure what the PayPal costs are in Ukraine, but it might be better with 2Checkout. So there are plenty of online stores that use this mainly because of that. Okay, so the pros of 2Checkout. One, you don't have to pay any monthly or setup fees. That's pretty huge because there are some payment processors who require you to pay something like that. They accept major payment methods, including credit cards, debit cards, PayPal as well. They also accept 87 currencies, 8 payment types, and 15 languages. So you can see just how focused they are on the international business world. There's also advanced fraud protection. Several customizable checkout options are available, and the checkouts are also mobile friendly. You get to brand them, and they're localized. So, as well as that, you can set up recurring billing for your customers, and it lets you connect a merchant account with the payment gateway, which is pretty cool. And the final pro I would say would be there are integrations, and that includes over 100 online carts, an API, as well as a sandbox for development purposes. As for the cons, I would say, there's a 1% fee that applies to payments you accept from customers outside of the US. So that's just an extra 1%, and that's kind of a downer, but you will have to factor that in when you're accepting payments through your store. Also, $20 is charged on your account for all chargebacks. It's not a huge deal. Most payment processors do charge for those chargebacks, but some are a little bit cheaper than 20. So, I mean, you just kind of have to compare. It depends. Finally, the average fee for currency conversion is 2 to 5% above the daily bank exchange rate. So once again, it's another fee if you're converting currencies between you and your clients. Once again, consider that. Alrighty, so Payoneer is our third PayPal alternative. It looks somewhat similar to Skrill, which is what we'll outline next. Since you get a debit card and an online account, they don't honestly have that much information on their website. It's primarily just a home page, which is kind of frustrating, but we do know some of their information that I can fill you in on. But yes, so let's go back up here. Some of the pros. It has some handy tools and integrations for freelancers who would like to accept money from clients. So this is particularly true for international payments. You can use Payoneer anywhere in the world, which is awesome for those where PayPal maybe not be accepted. The transaction process doesn't require any programming knowledge. So you really just you implement their transaction tool, and then you're ready to start accepting payments. You can implement the system on your website and get your money in a very quick period of time. All right, and then there's also getting access to your funds. It's pretty easy through your own bank account, or Payoneer has their own debit card, so you can get it through an ATM. And finally, the pricing is simple. They have monthly billing, which could be considered a downside for some people. So we will also put that in the cons. But it's great for payments between Payoneer accounts, because if you're accepting from someone who also has an account like this, then it will be completely free. All right, so I'll just touch on a few cons here. The jury is still out on the customer service. Many people online say it's still not that great. Also, when transferring to a bank account, you generally have to pay a fee. This is a huge downside since most other systems like PayPal have this for free. Another con would be you won't find any payment gateway with Payoneer. So this is kind of tricky with online stores. It's primarily set up for freelancers or people who are going to be invoicing. But if you're accepting custom orders, it might be a possibility. And then also, when you accept a credit card, it results in a pretty high fee. And also, if you go to an ATM, you should expect to pay a large fee as well. So it's not exactly the best option in terms of fees, but if you're working with other people who use Payoneer, it's completely free, and it actually is a really intuitive system to use. The next option is going to be called Skrill, and many of you probably have heard of this, especially if you've used it for international transfers. It has similar rates and fees as PayPal. It may seem the same at first, actually. However, the prepaid debit card and the simple interface is enough to consider it. As you can see, they also have that transfer system where you're sending from country to country, and they'll use sort of a one-time fee where you would choose, you're sending from a Belgian account and you're going to, let's see, the Bahamas. Well, that's not available right there. So, but there are plenty of options. As for the pros, the account setup is one of the easiest in the business. That's what we really like about it. Security is solid. Uploading and receiving funds while also spending money on Skrill at Skrill merchants is almost always free. So if you are using Skrill and you're transferring money through from a Skrill account to another one, then it should be free. And you can also use an account like this anywhere around the globe. But as we just saw there are a few countries where they're still expanding to in terms of the transfers. Also, all you need to make or accept a payment is an email address. So that makes it really easy. Now, that's kind of similar to PayPal, like we all know. But that's one of the benefits of PayPal. All you need is an email, and you can get money from anywhere. And finally, one of the last pros that I have for Skrill would be that it has a full system set up for gambling and playing games with money. So it's a good solution for those options. So if you have an e-commerce store or some sort of gaming platform online or gambling, it's actually one of the few payment processors that allows for that. Okay, as for some of the cons, sending money to an email address or another Skrill wallet costs 1% of the amount sent, with the charge capped at $10. So $10 isn't that bad, but once again, it's another 1% of a cost that you're sending to people. The company also has rather strict fraud prevention tools, so you may end up finding that your account is frozen maybe. However, this has been known to happen at PayPal as well. And one of the reasons they have this is because Skrill is known to take on more risk, so their fraud prevention tools are some of the best in the business. And finally, reports have shown that the customer service isn't the best at Skrill. You're going to have to do a little of your own research on that, but from the things I've seen online and my experience, I mean, their website really doesn't show you that much. You kind of have to sign up and talk to people, or the support team and sales team. But other than that, Skrill is a strong possibility, especially if you're using it for gambling or playing games online. And another option is Stripe. It's one of the most popular of all PayPal alternatives, and you'll notice that some e-commerce platforms state Stripe as their preferred payment processor. For example, Squarespace has been working with them for a very long time, and now Shopify provides its Shopify payment system through Stripe. So sometimes you're kind of almost forced to go with Stripe, especially with Shopify, where the whole point of Stripe is that it eliminates the need for a merchant account and gateway. So it's a little bit easier. And, if you do it through Shopify, there are zero transaction fees. But yeah, everything is handled by Stripe, from collecting payments to sending those payments to the bank. So it's one of the best options outside of PayPal when we're talking about payment processing. All right, so the pros and cons of Stripe. First of all, the pros. Stripe automatically puts your transaction money in a bank account. So it's one of the quickest ways to receive your money if you have an online store. Mobile payments are available. You can accept payments from people and companies all over the world. There is also real-time fee reporting, which is pretty great because you can see, the fees that are going to be coming in as you're making sales on your online store. And you also only pay for what you use. So a lot of times with these payment processors, you sign up for a plan and then you realize that you're paying for far too much. But with Stripe, that's not the case. And the pricing is always fairly transparent with no setup fees, no hidden fees, or monthly fees. Finally, Apple and Android Pay are supported. As for the cons, you generally have to wait a few days after a transaction to gain access to the money. Like I said, it's still pretty quick, but sometimes there are a few days in between. Although you can accept payments from all over the world, merchant accounts are only available through the United States, Canada, the UK, Australia, and quite a few European countries. So if you're not in one of those countries, then you technically can't have it for your online store. Another con would be the interface may require some programming knowledge. That's also a pro because Stripe was technically built for developers. So if you plan on completely customizing your payment processor and the gateway, then Stripe might be a good deal for you. And finally, international cards require an additional 1% transaction fee. Once again, it's an extra fee that I don't really like. If you're going for international transactions, then you might go with something else. All right, so another popular one would be Google Pay. It's rather new in this space, but lots of people know what it is because it comes from Google. Google Wallet is by far the best choice if you'd like a place to store and use your debit and credit cards, for personal use. Spending money is easy online, and you can also put all of your cards on your phone for spending at physical locations. However, you can also accept those payments at your online store or a physical store. So, Google Business allows you to accept Google Pay from your customers, whether it be on your website or a retail store, like I said. It only takes a moment to send out or receive your payments. Not only that, but a big pro would be that sending out payments from your smartphone is the primary feature, and it can be done online or in person. So, if someone has Google Pay on their phone and you go to something like a trade show or a convention and they want to buy a product from you, then that's a perfect way to get a quick transaction. And then people can also do it on your online store. Besides that, the security is solid. There aren't any fees at all, and your customers don't get charged anything extra. As for the cons, it's still limited to only iPhones and some Android phones, and the security is still kind of up in the air. We think it's pretty good. They've definitely improved, especially with their rebranding. But that's up to you, because you are carrying your financial information on your cellular phone. Next up is a payment processor merchant account called Authorized Net. Now, once again, this is very, very popular, especially with online stores, as the platform provides reasonable rates, quality customer service, and an interface that pretty much anyone can use. Although you don't have the ability to send and receive payments from like family and friends, it's a great PayPal alternative for those who would like to accept payments through their online store. Now let's roll through the pros and cons really quick. It has over 400,000 merchants on Authorized Net, so they've got to be doing something right. The reliability and security are far above the competition. They've been around for a while. They have a free mobile app as well as a swiper, and it comes along with your account for free. There's also free 24/7 support, and you have the ability to sync with QuickBooks, and there aren't any setup fees for a payment gateway or merchant account. Now, there used to be setup fees for Authorized Net, so they've obviously changed that, which makes Authorized Net, a little bit more appealing to online stores. Now, as for the cons, you don't get the personal finance and sending tools you would get with PayPal. There's also a monthly gateway fee of about $25. And if you sell globally, you can add a 1.5% assessment for international transactions. And the only other fee would be chargebacks, which is $25. It's more than others, but you're going to have to accept chargebacks regardless. All right, so next up is going to be Intuit. Intuit has all sorts of products. So, if we go to their products page, self-employed, Mint, TurboTax, Turbo, QuickBooks, it's all there. They also have an option for payments, and it's actually called Intuit QuickBooks Payments. So it integrates with QuickBooks, which is really nice for small businesses. And it could potentially provide you with a whole suite of tools depending on what you need for your business. So, if you wanted to do some of those other products, that's completely fine. And so for the pros, one, it directly integrates with QuickBooks. You gain access to TurboTax. You can send invoices just like PayPal. You get paid anywhere with mobile payments. And you can include a Pay Now button on your website that accepts credit cards. Let's see what else. You can connect your payments with timesheets and payroll. And it accepts ACH bank transfers. So those are all pretty great. Intuit knows what they're doing. So it is a pretty good option, especially if you're running retail stores and an online store at the same time. As for the cons, the rates are competitive enough if you're not working with QuickBooks, or they're not competitive enough. So, I think if you're working with QuickBooks, it's a great option. It integrates instantaneously. You can do your bookkeeping and kind of stick with a system that you know. But if you're getting into the online store game just starting off and you never looked at QuickBooks in your life, then the pricing doesn't really justify it. And finally, the only second con that I have is this isn't what you would want to go with if you're only looking for something for your personal sending and accepting. Now, obviously, that doesn't apply to online store owners, but PayPal would be much more reasonable for that purpose. All right, so another PayPal alternative is called Dwoll. As you can see, you can initiate bank transfers, you can manage users and instantly verify bank accounts. So that all sounds pretty good. Now, it may not initially come up on your radar when you're looking for an online payment processor, but it's still worth a look because it works so similar to PayPal. Although you do have the ability to send and receive payments from companies and individuals, the best part is that the company specializes in those ACH bank transfers. In fact, it's by far your best option if you plan on accepting or sending lots of bank transfers. So, as for the pros, the branding tools are awesome. Making bank transfers is super easy. You definitely need to consider this if you're primarily doing bank transfers. The next day transfers are offered for a flat fee. The transaction fee is only 25%, which is really low. And it lets the sender pay the transaction fee if needed. So if you wanted to charge your customers or your clients the transaction fee instead of eating that yourself, then it's a possibility. Also, an instant cash transfer is offered to get your money quicker, and you can automate mass payouts. Like if you're running a marketplace and you need to send different commissions to all sorts of different vendors on your website. So, those are all the pros. In terms of the cons, you can't make payments if both the sender and receiver aren't using Dwoll. So that's kind of a huge downside. You also can't make an account with Dwoll if you're located outside of the United States. Now, that might change in the future, but as of right now, it's only US-based companies. And Dwoll Business also has monthly fees, and they certainly aren't cheap. So if we scroll through here, they do have a smaller pay-as-you-go integration that I'm assuming will be cheaper, but we have $2,000 a month for Scale, the Scale plan, and then there's an enterprise custom pricing. So like I said, it's not cheap, but that depends on, if you're doing some big business and it's mainly through bank transfers, Dwoll would be a reasonable option for you. Now, Braintree is another alternative. It's actually owned by PayPal, so it's kind of underneath the same roof there. But along with a payment gateway and recurring billing, the Braintree system provides a way for you to store your credit cards, kind of like Google Pay. So my favorite parts of Braintree would be that the pricing is simple and straightforward. We can take a look if they have their pricing up on here. Yep, so we have standard pricing 2.9% plus that 30% per transaction, and that's pretty much all it is. There might be a few other fees down here, like the ACH direct debit. They have a fee. There's some return fees here, chargeback fees, but it's all listed out on their website, which is really nice. It's just one page. Um, some other things we like are that you get recurring billing and you can store credit cards. Braintree also accepts all sorts of payment methods, including PayPal, credit cards, and Venmo accounts, which is really interesting. You get a far more advanced list of features than you do with PayPal, and the customer support has been known to be rather solid. Um, Other than that, I would say, both online and mobile payments are allowed. So that's quite the advantage there. And there's also a special marketplace system, payment system. So if you do run a marketplace, that is pretty advantageous. So we can take a look at it here. You have your app or website, and then you can accept multiple pay-in options, run customizable fraud checks, and successfully process those transactions. So it's set up for a marketplace. So, Braintree might be a very viable option for you if you do have a marketplace. As for the cons, if you're planning on implementing Braintree on your website, it may require you to have some sort of programming knowledge. It's not exactly the most user-friendly in terms of people who might be beginners. Also, a separate merchant account is required for the system to work. And finally, although the main fee is for transactions, there is a large list of other fees that we actually looked at before, but you have to think about them. Now, they're very transparent about them, but they are fees. So, it might end up being more expensive for you, depending on how you're running your online store. And next up is going to be Amazon Pay. And similar to Google Pay, it's a great way for customers to store their online payment options. So, but in terms of letting people check out of your online store, Amazon Payments is at the top of your list. You should definitely consider this. It expedites the entire process, similar to something like PayPal. But the main advantage is that it's similar to a Facebook login. So everyone seems to have Amazon nowadays. So if they come to your store and they can quickly log on with their Amazon account and all of their payment information is in that account, then they don't have to think about anything. They don't have to type in the numbers or anything like that. Um, so as for the pros and cons, I like it because the transaction fees are just like PayPal, not going to be any different in terms of being a merchant. The security is very advanced compared to other competitors. And if you start with an Amazon account, the interface and sign up process is pretty easy. So if your customers do have that account, then they should be purchasing items from your store pretty quickly. And like I said, everyone's familiar with Amazon, so your customers will have it easy when paying. Now, there are a couple cons. Um, for example, there are some random fees like domestic processing fees and cross-border processing fees. You're integrating with your online store, and it may take a little bit of programming knowledge, kind of similar to, like I said, with Braintree. So that could be an advantage, if you're trying to really customize your online payment system, but just keep that in mind. All right, so those are our top 10 PayPal alternatives. If you have any questions, feel free to subscribe to our page. You can take a look at our list right here. We have Transferwise, 2Checkout, Skrill, Stripe. Um, I like Google Pay. I also like Amazon Pay, as you might have noticed. But yeah, so there's plenty of options for you if you're looking for lower transaction fees or if you have some sort of compatibility issue with PayPal. So I suggest you listen to some of the pros and cons that I talked about and potentially, talk to their own support teams. If you can call up Amazon Pay or send them an email and see exactly how it would work for your business. Once again, thank you for watching and be sure to subscribe to our page. Thanks.